Welcome, Nick Musica. Nick Musica gave me an awesome SEO story a couple of months ago about Google's Disavow Tool within Google Search Console. I thought it was really interesting. I'm not even going to try to explain it myself. Nick, I'll let you share it.
Good morning or good evening. I'm not quite sure what time it is for you.
It's evening here.
Got it. Yeah. So, this was from a while back. This was probably 2013 at this point. But for folks who have been doing this for a while, they'll remember Panda and Penguin updates. And for folks who haven't, take a look.
Wait, sorry to interrupt you. We should probably even say what the Disavow Tool is in the first place.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll define it in the context of the story. So there were a couple algorithm updates that happened in 2011, 2012. And Panda was the first big one. And what the goal of Panda was to essentially take out all this farmed content, all this really thin, low quality content. And so it did that, and I believe it was 2012 or 2011. This is when I was working at Esurance in the Bay Area. And then the following year, they came out with the Penguin update. And so everyone in the industry is scared to death because of people lost jobs, people lost businesses. It was a big deal, the Panda update. And then Penguin comes around a year later, and everyone's getting pounded because they bought links. They were gaming the algorithm, they bought links. And so Google comes around with this Disavow Tool. And they say, hey, if there's something in your backlink profile, if you bought links, just upload the list here and they'll be disavowed. They won't count against or for your backlink profile. So everyone is still having, PTSD from Panda. And so everyone just willingly uploads all of their terrible links that they bought. And I thought it's really interesting. What I think is happening here is they're intentionally asking people for these links to fill in any dashed line in their database, right? Of these terrible links, of these bad link networks, creating these solid lines of, if you can imagine solid lines being direct connections, dash being indirect, or we're not quite sure connections. And so I was thinking about that for a while, and then, I'm no longer working at Esurance. I'm working at Rock Lawyer, which I believe had an investment by Google. And so there's this Google event, and there's a bunch of folks who have a bunch of funding from Google. And I showed up for this SEO chat, which was awful. It was really quite terrible. There was a guy there who was buying links from Delicious at the time and giving a presentation on it like it was some interesting thing. And there was a rep from Google there, maybe a couple. And we got to talking, and I said, I think it's fascinating what you guys did with the two algorithm updates. First, you just scared everyone. I mean, you cleaned things up, but you scared everyone. Then the only thing left in the searches were big brands, and that was the conversation at the time. And then a year later, you ask everyone to upload all their terrible links. It's genius. And I got this non-response response. It was just this blank look. And at the time, I thought, yeah, I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right about what I just said. I can't confirm or deny that I was right, but it does make sense that if you wanted to fill in your backlinks as a database, as Google, because there was so much going on, they couldn't keep track of everything, so they just asked people to upload it, right? And they've done similar type of things like, go into Google Images and label the images. Oh, you want me to do the work for you, right? So this was another instance of, you got me to do the work, but you actually did get me, the universal me, to do the work for you. So fascinating. It was super interesting to see. And so now, if you take a look at, should I disavow my backlinks, you'll find a soundbite from John Mueller saying, "Don't even bother. We're probably going to retire the tool." Well, why are you going to retire the tool? Sounds like it's not useful anymore. Well, why was it useful to begin with? Right? Well, because you needed people to upload their links. And I'm sure there's some other uses of it. This is just my perspective and a whole lot of speculation, but in my brain, it makes sense.
Why do you feel it's not useful now? Because people aren't scared?
The Disavow Tool, I don't think it's necessary for Google. I think they have what they need.
So everyone told them the bad links.
I think they were able to, because they filled in any gap in their database, right? In their understanding of poor links, how people were buying them, and the relationship of those links, because there's networks of folks, there's networks of bad websites, right? And there's a couple players who, just like create enormous networks. But once you have that, my imagination is, well, now you know what to look for and how to look for it better in the future, right? It's a pattern now. So just look for the pattern.
So a new satellite network pops up, which is like, for people listening, it's a more advanced PBN, a more advanced private blog network. So a new satellite network pops up and Google's like, oh, this looks like the other satellite networks.
That's right. Yeah. If it, it's the duck analogy. If it looks like one, walks like one, talks like one, it's a duck.
But why, I'm curious though, like, if people are going to report bad links anyway, why not leave in it? Or maybe what happened is now people are reporting bad links that they shouldn't be reporting because they're reporting low quality links because they're so afraid they got like these low quality links, and they're reporting links that actually they shouldn't be reporting, and maybe Google is now getting like all this mixed data that they don't want.
I mean, that sounds, yeah, that would make sense as well. Yeah, and so the tool outlived its usefulness.
That's such an interesting story. And, now like with what we saw with the May 2024 Google API leak, well, we found out that like some of the things that Google says, not really, how Google actually works. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't give a whole lot of, why would leaks happen? Leaks happen for reasons, I think. And so someone wants someone to find out. So
well, no, the story was, I don't know if the story is actually insane. So I looked at it very closely. I think it was 6-8 months ago. You know who Dan Petrovic is?
No, I don't.
Dan Petrovic, I forget the name of his agency, but he's been like a long-term, like well-known player in SEO, has discovered a lot of things, has run a lot of well-known tests that have been covered. But he found this leak, and then he reported it to Google like a few times, and he wrote about this. He wrote this article about how he reported it to Google, and Google just kind of ignored him, and then like ignored him for like, I think it was like months, and then the leak got out because he was trying to tell Google the leak is there, and the leak got out, and like right before the leak got out, Google, or it was like right after. Yeah, it was right before the leak got out, but it was too late. Google like realized what was happening, and they tried to hide all the information, and then I think they were too late. Yeah. And then it got out, and it got out by this guy who shared it with Rand Fishkin, who publicized it, and and it was this whole crazy thing. Just seeing how like all of Rand Fishkin's tests, especially about like click data. And like CTRs and the SERPs and all of that stuff is so interesting. I mean, we as people who have practiced search engine optimization for a long time, we knew this stuff. Like, it wasn't surprising really to us, but it was surprising for the people who treated Google representatives' words as like the holy gospel, as like, this is the truth. This is the truth. And then they found out that it wasn't. So you've been doing a search engine optimization for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since 2003. Yeah, since 2003. So, I mean, I was doing it before I knew that I was having any impact on the site, and folks still do that today, right? Like, I'm in the marketing department. I publish blogs. I download images straight out of the camera or off of Getty, right? It's like 5 megs. I dump it on the website. You're doing search engine optimization, not in service of the website, but you're still doing it. Or you write articles and then you publish them on the site. Some of them are 200 words, right? Well, whatever it is. Like, anytime you touch the website, you're doing SEO, whether you know what you're doing or not. So I was in that category a while back. I was coding the pages, writing the content, and I was working for one of the babies of AT&T at the time on this little skunkworks project. There was like 4 of us, and we weren't getting the result we wanted. So we hired a firm. This is 2003. And the firm gave us the same type of deliverable 3 months in a row for $6,000 at the time. $6,000. That's so much money.
It was 6,000 a month.
Sorry, yeah, 6,000 a month. So 6,000 times 6 was the contract, yeah. And in the first 3 months, each month they gave us a PDF of 4 pages of the website, the copy of the site, and they, put in a couple terms here and there, for lack of a better phrase, SEO editing the page, like very light touches. And I gave it to my boss, and he said, "Well, let's see what they give us the next month." And the following month, it was either month 3 or 4, but they gave us a best practices in interlinking. It was about a page and a half long. Here's what interlinking is. Here's why it's important. Here's how you can go about doing it. And I was looking for recommendations for my website for $6,000 a month. And they didn't provide any recommendations. None. Zero. I grabbed some of the copy from the PDF, dump it into Google, and I get back a page or two that looks very similar to the PDF that they delivered us. And I go to my boss and I say, so here's what they gave us. Now what? Well, go find someone who's going to train us on what we know, validate what we know, fill in the blanks of what we don't know, and we're going to get rid of these guys. Great. So I found Shari Thoreau, who came in, and she trained us up. And the last day of training, she said, one or both of you are going to get a new job. And I wasn't really keen on my job at the time. So I, raised my hand. Why do you say that? And she said, well, because after every one of my trainings, someone gets a new job 3 or 4 months after they get trained. It's just how it works every time. Cool. Well, sure enough, 3 or 4 months later, I had a new job focusing solely on SEO, and that the training with her really started to lay out the career path that I had, looking at websites from a very specific lens known as SEO.
You're probably watching this because you want customers or users or prospects for your business. Definitely customers. Users and prospects are a great way to get there. I have great news for you. I just released the most incredible program showing how to do this. It uses SEO search engine optimization to target customers who are looking for exactly what you are offering. These aren't people asking why, what, when. These are people who know what they want. They don't know the brand that's going to give it to them. And so they're looking for your brand. They're searching on Google. They're searching on Bing. They're asking ChatGPT. This method works even for ChatGPT or for Gemini or for Claude. SEO is my favorite channel because you can target people with purchase intent. People who are cash in hand, they're ready to purchase, they're ready to use, they're ready to take a call from you. This program gives an actionable plan, not just definitions and explanations. It's videos and templates that are meant to be copied and adapted for your business. It shows how to get the results that I get every day with step-by-step breakdowns. I make it super clear how to do this. It's very in-depth. Lots of people are already getting huge results from it. People are making tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from this. I hope you'll check it out. It's at compactkeywords.com. Back to the podcast. 2003. You know what's super funny though is that experience that you had with that agency who charged you all this money and didn't deliver any value. Man, I mean, you know as well as I do, that's probably still what is most common in search engine optimization today.
Yeah, I mean, the way
you have agencies that overcharge and don't actually get results.
Yeah, it's true. I talked to a guy probably about maybe a year ago at this point, and he was with an SEO agency who did a lot of legal work. He was a lawyer, and he was looking to switch. He wasn't happy, and he really couldn't identify what he wasn't happy with. I don't know if he was being cagey or he just didn't really know, or I'm not quite sure really what his come from was. But at some point in the conversation, I said, I typically don't ask people for this, but I think in this case, it could be productive if you're up for sharing the contract. So I can understand what they subscribe to give you. And then we can have a non-technical, non-gibberish SEO language talk and see what you actually got. And he goes, it's not necessary. I said, okay, that's fine. You don't have to share it. He said, no. I would if I thought it'd be helpful. But there's nothing in the contract that really states the deliverables I'm getting each and every month. So the company he was working for wasn't delivering. I asked him to send me the contract, and he said it's not necessary because there are no details in there. There's no deliverables that he can point to see what these guys were what they were doing and were they living up to their end of the contract. So SEO is a checkered reputation for good reasons in some cases.
Yeah, there's just a lot of scammers out there. You're still practicing search engine optimization every day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I started my agency in 2019. I'm working with small businesses. Some are small, some are startups, some are mature businesses. It really depends who comes through.
What are you excited right now about in search engine optimization? Or what are some of the things that you're seeing that other people aren't seeing? Because when you do it for a long time, you see things that other people don't see.
Yeah. So here's the one thing that I see that I've been seeing for a very long time is SEOs are really good at talking about SEO. I mean, it's just so much garbage out there. The next thing comes out, we're just talking about it to death. And SEOs are really good at trying to rank for anything regard to SEO. I mean, there's websites I've been to show people that, don't go everywhere just because something has been published and circulated 101 times. Don't take it as truth. It's because it's not. There was this one page on a very, very well-known SEO's website, and it said, here are the top ranking algorithm factors. Some are speculation. Like, so helpful to everyone. That some are speculation, and they were clearly outdated. I mean, there's at the top of the list is like exact domain match. Why you should have very specific keywords in your domain. Sure, yeah, because that wasn't debunked 10 years ago. All right, what about PR? Yeah, that was never really taken. That was never a big algorithm factor. Matt Cutts came out and said never, because it's you can get the link so easily. Why would they incorporate that, right? So people tend to read what's online.
You mean press releases?
That's right. Yeah, press releases. Yeah, Business Wire, whatever. You choose the website, but the point, it's old school rules there. It's you drop the press release on the wire, and then whoever picks it up in the papers writes something about it, mentions you, links to you. That's the benefit of it. It's not putting it on the wire and then you get those backlinks.
I think it gives a very to just give a different viewpoint. I think it gives a boost because at least shows that a business is serious about themselves. I've seen personally that it gives a minor boost. But it is useful if you're in a hot niche that people actually like to cover, because then you might actually get earned media from it.
That's right. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where the benefit is right there.
Yeah.
So people are still talking about SEO like they know all the nooks and crannies and how it all works, right? And the latest version of that is, how does AI map to that conversation? So we have a couple facets of it. We have how people are creating their websites, and now there's, one-click create a website using AI. Probably not a great use for AI. There's already templates. Like, use a template. They're creating a custom website's not that hard these days, right? It's just not. The most prevalent,
or use Squarespace, or use Wix, or Weebly, or any of these,
something like that.
Yeah, Webflow,
Yeah. I mean, the biggest abuse of AI that I've seen so far is people who don't have content, don't have writers, will just plop in an idea for an article into ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it is, spin out a piece of content, do that 100 times, and start publishing their content and call it SEO. And the reality is those pages typically don't rank. If a big brand were to do that, they would have a better chance of ranking because there's authority with that website. But smaller players, and I'm not saying it's a good idea for brands either, but smaller players, affiliates, small publishers, brands or services, that type of thing does not put you in a good position. If anything, it starts to create a history of garbage content on your site that you need to dig yourself out of. So, I mean, there was a guy I was working with probably 2 years ago at this point, and we had a small content SOW, and then I went back to him after we completed it and said, so let's talk about where we're going next. He said, we hired another firm. They're going to produce it at a fraction of the cost. Oh, how are you doing that? AI content. Go to the blog, take a look. And I read it and I was like, if you don't know the topic, it reads pretty well, but I happen to know this topic. And I'm reading the content going, it's just not going to work. I said, all right, I'm going to give you a call back in 3 or 4 months. Let's see how this goes. I called him back 3 or 4 months later and I said, so you do know that none of your pages have gotten indexed. None of them. And I know that they should because I'm the guy who did the technical audit and we had everything fixed. They are available for crawl and indexation and therefore rank. Unless, of course, they're not worthy of being ranked. In this case, they're not. Oh, what would you like to do about it? Nothing. Okay. Then people get to run their businesses and their websites like that. But for folks who really want to succeed in SEO these days, where the version of SEO that I see come up is, yeah, Google, yeah, Bing, you pick your favorite search engine, whatever it may be, DuckDuckGo. But there's also the AI tools, right? So we're not talking about SEO via search engines. We're talking about information retrieval via search engines and AI and whatever other engine that may be popping up around here. So I think our jobs as SEO is be in the places where people are actively looking for your product or service, where there's a retrieval model, an information retrieval model, and those are going to be and have been for a very long time the opportunities to get brands and good content visibility.
Dude, I love that you share that because I think so many SEOs are afraid to say, don't do AI content. SEOs are afraid because it's a hot topic and you're seen as a cool kid. If you say, yeah, publish 100 AI generated pages, you're seen as the cool kid. But like the people who want results and who are playing the long game, they don't say that. Also, another thing is, even if you, and I've seen this, and you've probably seen it too, even if you do rank with an AI generated page or post, it's probably going to have a high bounce rate because lots of readers can tell, like just the way that AI writes, for me at least, it's pretty easily discernible. And I would bet that it increases. I've actually seen pages that ranked immediately that were written with AI. They put the keyword in, these are the places you put the keyword in, and you know this, in the page title, the beginning of the page title, the beginning of the meta description, the URL slug, the H1, the beginning of the first sentence, put in those 5 places. So the page will rank right away, but it's written with AI, and then the bounce rate is so high that the page just gets de-indexed pretty fast.
Or the quality gets sniffed out, right? You can bully the algorithm. You can still bully the algorithm with whatever it is, low competitive terms, there's no one there, and then you publish a 5,000 word page and happens to have all the keywords on it, right? But it's been written by AI or a human and it's poor content, or it's on a domain that has a bad history, or like there's a bunch of reasons why it would get pushed back to page three or 4 or whatever it may be. But it may be fine tomorrow. Like it may be a great tool to use tomorrow, and it's certainly a great planning tool. But I used ChatGPT a while back just to test the waters and see, right? So I asked it to give me, even just as a planning tool. I spent a lot of time in car insurance on the SEO side, content side. And so I typically test tools from that lens of car insurance, right? Because I know the topic well. And I asked it for an outline for a new driver, aka a young driver, looking to get their first insurance policy, right? Or I take that back. It was to buy a car. And it comes back with, it's helpful, but if you don't know what you're actually creating, you can't see that it's not 100% outline. It's like 60 to 80% at best, and some of it's bad. So there's places in there where I would, just as part of the exercise, took out the headings, put in my own headings to fill it out. And what the biggest tell for me, among others, was, so how do I afford a car as an 18-year-old new driver? Go get a bank loan. Use your credit cards. Sure, that's going to work for the majority of 18-year-olds. What about mom and dad? It's not even mentioned, right? Like, so it's just absent of the reality of what should be going on there. So if you know the topic, it could be a good planning tool. If you don't know the topic, you're going to look at that outline and go, this is awesome. Just write the content for me. And then you're going to come up with a bunch of shit content. And then Google's going to stop indexing content because it's all going to be a bunch of shit content. And then affiliates and small publishers are going to go missing. And all that has already happened, right? So SEOs are really good at taking perfectly good technology and perfectly good marketing tactics and burning them to the ground. And so when I see the SEO culture going in a specific direction, burning through things, my tendency is to go, okay, what's next? Like, I'm not chasing the puck. Where's the puck going to be in a year from now? Because my promise to my clients is sustainable results. That's the goal that I'm going for.
Where do you think the puck will be in a year from now?
We need to take a look at how AI engines are evolving. That's where we need to go to, right? There's a lot of talk, and it's sort of hilarious, but it's also something to watch, right? I saw this a couple of weeks ago. Google's market share is less than 90%. It's all happening. Did I just hear you say Google's market share is 89%? Like, really? Yeah, I mean, and we may be going in that direction. And it may happen, again, overnight. There's been a lot of things that have been happening overnight recently. But until it's not relevant, it's still very relevant. And if you were an AI, where were you going to build AI engine? Where are you going to get your information from? How did you seed all that information? Wikipedia, other places where information retrieval is prevalent, aka Google, right? And so how do you get into those AI engines these days? Ranking in Google. I saw something this morning that said, also links are probably not relevant for AI. No, because they were relevant for Google and they scraped Google. Come on. Like, let's.
And Bing. I mean,
That's right.
ChatGPT, yeah, it gets a lot of its information. One of the most important things that you can do is like submit your information to Bing Webmaster Tools, have your sitemap in your robots.txt. And
that's
like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the AI engines, and I don't know if this is a fair comment or not, if they're a lazy version of Google, schema, sitemaps, those types of things are going to matter more, right? Because they're not looking to really understand it, I don't think. But they put it together really. I don't care if it's called but it's called artificial intelligence. No, it's pattern matching. That's what it's doing. And so if it's not looking to really understand intent, but instead understand pattern matching, the easiest way to do that is going to be technical shortcuts. So give them the schema, and you should be doing this already for your site. If you're not, then that's a problem. Schema, sitemaps, XML sitemaps, those things are going to be very helpful.
I want to talk about schema for a second because I think there's a huge emphasis on schema for people who have their sites built with like website builder tools like the ones we mentioned, like Squarespace, or even if you're using WordPress and you're using something like Elementor with WordPress, which is what I use.
That's right.
And what a lot of people don't realize, because they freak out thinking about schema, what a lot of people don't realize is that the solutions they are probably using, unless they've custom coded the solution themselves, the solution that they are using already has schema built in, and they don't need to panic over it. That's my take, at least.
I mean, a lot of the time that's true. And here's the other thing. When you start doing, I mean, the more custom you make your website, the larger, the greater chance you have of breaking very basic things. I've seen it time and time again. The best outcome you can get from an SEO perspective is a more simple technical setup. But once you start screwing with headers and things like that, I just went through an audit with a website where the entire website didn't have a canonical tag. It was outside of the header. So now we have duplicate content issues. We have canonicalization issues because there was infusion of custom code in the header. There was a tag that was essentially broken, right? So a lot of the times out of the box is pretty good, and then it needs to be fine-tuned, and then you can optimize on top of that. Once you start, and this is just what I've seen, once you start to really try to finagle things and really force a result, you're sort of working backwards. it was given the correct URL, but it was outside the head, which means it would get ignored. The way to validate that is go to Google Search Console and see what the canonicalization is for that URL, right? You just need to spot check a couple of them, and you get your validation, because a third party Screaming Frog, a third party tool may or may not completely one-to-one what Google's seeing, right? So that's your hint,
Screaming Frog.
right? Yeah, it's wonderful. And then is that true in Search Console, right? Well, let's go find out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's when you have big sites, you see crazy issues all the time. I mean, this was a long time ago. I worked with someone who literally just had, I think his staging site was indexed. And all we had to do was like add no index to the staging site. And like you saw his traffic just like spike line. It just spiked up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the conversation frequently is, but Google won't index the staging site because it says staging.mydomain.com. Really? Show me where that's been stated. Show me where Google has said we're going to identify a staging site. Show me. It's not there, right? If it looks like a relevant website, then, and it's accessible to Google, their job is not to make business decisions for you. Their job is not to technically architect your website. Your job is to make business decisions. You don't want Google making business decisions or making any decisions on your website. Well, we'll just give them 2 versions of the URL and do that 100 times. They can make a decision. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You're going to get terrible results, right? And should they crawl and index this page? There's so many tools. Just use them to tell Google where to go, where not to go. It's not productive. And so going back to a comment I said earlier, and then Google chooses not to index pages, right? It throttles it back because there's too much garbage out there. I don't blame them. There's a lot of garbage out there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Schema is that's something that tons of people fuss about. I do believe that Google over the last couple of years really has become so much better at discerning what is on a page or what is on a post. Becomes so much better. And so like, even if your technical setup isn't perfect, this is something that I say on the show all the time because I think people focus on the technical setup like too much. For example, like having like the best score on page speed insights, for example, when like I can show you a million websites that have failed page speed insights that have incredible rankings. And so people get caught up on the technical details to an obsessive point to where it doesn't matter. But then you also have the people who created their websites when they knew nothing at all about how to actually make a proper website. They just wanted it to like look good. And that's really where you have like the biggest issues. That's where you have like the biggest technical issues with SEO that needs to get fixed. And that's where the SEOs really like, they need to come in and do their jobs. And you see that. Yeah. You see that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about technical, the questions to ask, there's 2 questions, and it's, can Google crawl my website? Yes or no? And then how efficiently can it crawl my website? So if you have robots.txt blocking the website, or if you have no index blocking pages, then the answer is it cannot, right? It's a pass fail. It can't index it. Can't crawl it. If you have inefficiencies, if you have 301 loops, if you have chains, if you have multiple versions of the website, I don't know which one to show now in search, right? If you have huge images, 1 meg on every page, if you have 60 meg video on your home page, these are the types of things that I've seen really slow sites down. When we get into, layout shift, things of that nature, what I've seen is I've seen that be an issue, at least back in the day before Google corrected them and took them out of the search results, is there'd be a lot of websites, small publisher websites, that would initially defer loading of ads. And so now you have things shifting around. and a user goes to click on something in the copy and they end up clicking on something in an ad. Well, now it matters a lot, right? But how many brands, products, services are really doing that? Not a lot. For me, it would back into how much animation is on the page and how much is that JavaScript weighing the page down. And so is it the animation and the shifting? Maybe, but really it's the JavaScript is all the calls.
Yeah. I have a question. What are some SEO tools that you really love?
I think everyone should put Search Console on their site today. Not everyone does, and I think you should have two versions. Yeah.
One of my most viral videos is I literally say, this is the video. I'm like, nobody knows this about Google. This video, by the way, has like 15 or 20 million views. I'm like, nobody knows this about Google. And I'm like, if you don't tell Google that you exist and you're not getting a lot of clicks, Google's not going to know you exist. Go to Google Search Console, do this. And it freaked people out because so many people didn't know about Google Search Console.
It's nutty. Yeah. And so do two versions when you of your website. There's a specific URL version and there's a domain version, right? Typically, so when you go to set up a profile, the left-hand side is put your domain in. And it'll bring everything in from that domain. So if you have any subdomains out there that Google has access to, it's going to bring those in. It's not the best tool for analyzing a website from an SEO perspective. So you want to use the right-hand side and create a very specific profile for that website. And that's really what you want to work off of. But the left-hand side where you put your domain in there, it can bring up staging. It could bring up dev or whatever, however you're calling your websites, or subdomain 1, 2, and 3.site.com. And you start to see that, so when we talked, Edward, you said you had one website. You actually have 50, right?
Because of all the subdomains?
Right. I'm making up the scenario a bit.
Are you also putting in the HTTP and the HTTPS versions?
Not anymore. No. And if you, no, that wouldn't work.
Because sometimes actually you see that like the HTTPS breaks. And then you see that with GSC. Yeah.
I haven't done that in a while. I mean, it's probably a good idea for most folks to do that.
I literally had that happen on one of my sites. It's but yeah, most people don't even know put in all the variations like you said. So why is that a best practice for people who are listening?
Yeah, well, because the left-hand side, if you put in your domain, you're going to see anything that's possible that Google has crawled and indexed, which is going to impact the SEO health of the actual website that you really want to get visibility on. So you want to create that broad domain capture to see what's available to Google, aka what should you clean up on your technical backend on your server. And on the right-hand side of setting up that profile, you want the very specific domain so you can get all data relevant to only that domain so you don't have a bunch of dirt you need to clean up as you're going to do your analysis.
Google Search Console is a must for everybody.
Just get it. Yeah, and get Screaming Frog
too. Yeah. Oh my god.
Get Screaming Frog. Yeah, I mean, and here's the problem with Screaming Frog is it's a wonderful tool and it'll report everything. So if you don't know how to do SEO, if you don't know what is important, go take a couple courses, go get some training. Because those tools don't make you a better SEO. They can actually make you a worse SEO because you don't know what's relevant, what's important. You need to take a look at it and be able to, if you're a vendor like myself or if you're in-house, you need to be able to take a look at the findings of any of those tools, Search Console, Screaming Frog, name the tool, it doesn't matter, SEMrush, and put it in context of what is most important, where you're going to get your biggest bang for the buck. If you don't do that, you're just chasing random findings. And then you don't know what moved the needle. You don't know what should be moving the needle. When your traffic goes up, you don't know what to attribute it to. When your traffic goes down, you don't know what to attribute it to.
Yeah, Screaming Frog is great. Do you have any, we're going to wrap up soon. Do you have any exciting success or failure stories that you can share? And they don't have to be your failures. They don't have to be your successes. But anything that you want to share, I love stories like this. And if you have any more theories, like the disavow theory, because that one That one was very fun.
I'll give you, I mean, they're failure stories. So that story came from when I was working at dmv.org, which is a local publisher here in San Diego. And I got there in 2012. And I left 6 years later. When I started with the company, we were getting 85 million visits a year through SEO. When I left, we were getting 185 million visits a year through SEO. Less than a week after I leave, my former manager sends me a text and says, so you've been gone for less than a week. We lost 40% of our traffic overnight. Right? So with that website, more or less a one-to-one with revenue, more or less. And that wasn't the first hit on the head. There was other hits on the head in terms of losing traffic. And so that company went from having a whole lot of full-time employees to not a lot of full-time employees.
So 1 week after you left, they lost 40% of their organic traffic? Is that what you said?
That's right. Yeah. The joke was
Why?
I tripped over the cord. Yeah. Yeah. Because here's what happened. That site, dmv.org, happens to have a whole lot of Division of Motor Vehicle content on there, right? It's not the state, it's not the government. And it says so at the top of the page. But we built a really good website and it's a .org, which means a lot of people think it's the real deal. Well, it's not. .gov is the government. .org, I can go register 10 .orgs right now, and I'm not a nonprofit, and I'm not the government, right? So .org does not mean government. And a lot of people do and did, which means a lot of links got pointed to that website. So we were really just working on creating a really good website, and we did a really good job. We had a really solid team. We did really good work. Unfortunately, the site is not the DMV, and that was the downfall. So when we started to outrank the California DMV and all these other state agencies, at some point Google decided you should not be outranking these DMVs. I should never outrank you, Edward, for you and your name. I shouldn't. And in this case, I was. We were outranking these agencies.
So you're saying it was a coincidence that you left and then the 40% hit came?
Yeah. The timing was just
okay.
Pure coincidence. Yeah.
Crazy.
I didn't do anything. Yeah, I didn't do anything.
That's crazy.
Yeah, just pure coincidence. And so that happened there. And so let's keep on following the coincidence ball, right? So I get to the next company. I'm not doing SEO. I'm running the company. So another affiliate. And these were the only two affiliates I ever worked for in my career, dmv.org and cbdoilreview.org. And I'm like, whew, I missed the big algorithm change, right? So cool. Like, so happy not to be there. I'm sorry for my former colleagues, but like I'm okay that I didn't have to experience that. And then fast forward May 2019, and CBD Oil Review gets hit by an algorithm. And we lose about 40% of our traffic overnight. And so now I start to do the math, and I'm like, oh man, I'm looking for a new job in like November. I'm going to fire the young lady who I brought in. I'm going to fire myself the week after, and that's it. Like the revenue's not there because the traffic's not there anymore. So I eventually, that's when I started Optics In. It was, I was like, well, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go back to my core and start doing SEO, providing SEO services, products and services. This affiliate thing it was fun while it lasted, but I'm not going to work in that environment full time. It's just not what I want to do. But the reason why, dmv.org fell is because it should have never been outranking the agencies. So where you're outranking, players where you shouldn't be outranking them, I mean, celebrate the temporary win, but don't build a business on that. It's not a good idea. And CBD oil, here's what happened there, I think, is that company was alive before the Farm Bill passed, making CBD legal. So that website was operating before CBD was legal. There was a bunch of other folks operating as well. And when that change came around in May of 2019, CBD Oil Review and a bunch of other folks who were competitors the day before were just missing, just gone, a lot of them. And in their place were these new players, aka before and after the Farm Bill got passed, right? So when we talk about the algorithm, absolutely, we should be talking about the algorithm. We should be students of the algorithm. We shouldn't be chasing it. We should be understanding the intent behind it and best creating websites to to map to that intent and be good citizens of the internet and do all the right things to support our businesses and society at large. But let's not blind out that there may be other factors that could be at play. Like you shouldn't be outranking government agencies. And if you operate in a black market, when that black market is now legal, there may be a shift. And those are just two examples.
What did CBD oil? It was CBD Oil Review. What did they do? What practices were they doing, or what were they doing wrong that got them?
They existed and were selling products that were federally illegal before they were legal. And then once that product became legal, a bunch of folks entered the marketplace. And now
so what,
Google
they just had like a bad
businesses.
of like they had a bunch of bad links built up because they were in illegal business. Like
it's not about that. It's
or
about
Google. There was a manual. It was a manual penalization.
Yeah, it's algorithmic. It was algorithmic, but there was a line in the sand. It appears that anyone who was operating before CBD was federally legal. You got kicked in the pants, and other folks who started businesses when it was federally legal started to rank very, very well.
That's interesting because I would have expected that you would have heard an opposite story, which is, oh, right place, right time. They had been making content about this, and then it became legal, and they all of their stuff now they should get even more traffic.
It's not that simple. It's not that simple, right? So those are really good. That's a really good SEO framework, but it's not a legal framework, right?
I suppose I could see that like they would literally build in just a way to detect people who were selling it illegally before this was passed. But that's just I've never heard something like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean again, this is
then again,
my experience.
Google de-indexes. You know what? Actually, I have. Then again, Google de-indexes huge niches all the time because they don't like the niche. It's just surprising that they would do it once the niche is like made legal and acceptable. Then they like, why not penalize them before?
It's a good question. I don't have
penalize
a good
them before it becomes? Why not penalize them when it is actually illegal?
Well, I mean, that type of thinking, we're sort of seeing it being applied now, right? Like, if Reddit and Quora took over the SERP for CBD, like that could have happened back then as well. I mean, that's happened recently. But how they handled it then, it appears to be this line in the sand of you're operating illegally in a black market versus you're operating legally in a legal market now.
But it sounds like you were operating illegally, and now you're operating legally. But now that you're operating legally, now we're going to de-index your website.
So, yeah, there's
what it could be. I'm just thinking out loud. Sorry, it could be that these it became legal, and what you had these new sites come in with a lot of funding and real press and real like VCs and big angels backing them and real credibility. And so just because they were actually able to do like real marketing and real press, and maybe this other site that was doing tons of the time illegal sites will do black hat SEO stuff. And then you have in these new players who are actually doing things by the book with real funding behind them. That would explain why the new players would overtake this old one.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but typically you don't have new websites ranking on page 1 within 5 months, 6 months.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that all the time. Like, I had a friend who launched a site, and then like it was called focusmusic.fm, and then he sold it. It was called focusmusic.fm. He launched it, and then the next day he put it onto Product Hunt, and he got to number 1 on Product Hunt. And that same day, he ranked number 1 on Google for Focus Music, which had like a tremendous amount of traffic behind it. And just because he put it on Product Hunt and got all the clicks and like was number one and got all that traffic, and then people were actually staying on the site and using it, and so the engagement was good. So I could totally see something like that if legit sites, like legit companies with legit funding and press were coming out. Google's going to value that a lot.
Yeah,
that's
maybe. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's not what I saw at the time looking at the data.
That's crazy. What do you think about the HCU? And do you think this is actually a question that I see all the time? Do you think HCU recoveries are possible? Have you heard of any stories?
There was an article published in October. Who published that? Hold on. Give me a second. I always get the site wrong.
Nick is looking for this article for people listening about the helpful content update.
Search Engine Roundtable. There was an article published on Search Engine Roundtable in October. And it highlighted a meeting in Mountain View. Google invited a bunch of small publishers, folks who bought the kayaks, used the kayaks, took pictures of the kayaks, video of the kayaks. They did everything that they were supposed to do to quote unquote produce helpful content, right? And this article states in so many words that a Google employee said, "We're sorry. It's not your website. Nothing wrong with your content. Also move on because maybe or maybe not it'll come back. We don't know. We're not quite sure." So there have been some reports of traffic coming back, but I haven't seen anything that is really helpful in terms of groups of sites coming back or individual sites coming back to a degree that makes me hopeful for anyone else based on where they were, where they fell to, and what the recovery means. Right? Recovery relative to yesterday is not interesting relative to recovery compared to where the site was. Like, if I was getting 1 million visits a day and then I went down to 1, if I doubled my traffic to 2, I just don't give a shit. I just don't care, right? And that's sort of what I've seen more often than not is we recovered. We have double than we used to have, and a fraction of what we actually did, right? So the algorithm has changed, and partially I think because back in the day, it was a manual process to make a better page. You take a look at the top 10 results. You would see where are the holes. How do I make a better page? Do I have a site that has a chance of ranking? Right, that's a simple formula. Worked quite a bit. And then ClearScope, MarketMuse, Surfer SEO came out, and that made it more systematic to do that. And then we had AI coming out to do that. And so folks who were producing 1 page are now producing 10. Folks who are producing 10 are now producing hundreds. Hundreds are now producing thousands. And so we get back again to I'm not going to index your shitty web page, says Google. And so now what do? We make a change where we put Core and Reddit in front of everyone. Is that better? Man, maybe not, but also maybe. Or maybe they're doing it really purposely to train AI. I don't know, because they can't train them on that garbage, right? You can't. And at least at that point in time, there was probably more human written comments and questions in Core and Reddit. Now, I mean, everything's, like I said, SEOs are really good at taking what's at the top of the SERP and just like burning it, right? So someone's creating bots, spinning up profiles and putting comments and questions in there, right? Because that's the game now. That's the game now for affiliates or whatever it may be. But is it going to come back? I don't know. I had a site that was an affiliate website, and I don't have any hope for it to come back. And it quote unquote recovered.
Yeah, I saw the same exact thing. People are like, we recovered, and if you look at their history, it was just like a little blip went up, just a little bit, just a wee little bit. It went up, and then that's it. What people have different theories for this. What are your theories as to what causes the help? I don't know if you know who Lars Lofgren is. He came on the podcast, and so Lars got hit with the HCU, and he came on and he shared like he heard and he believes, and Lily Ray, who's a pretty well-known SEO as well, she said that the Google Helpful Content Update is basically like a hit. It's like a penalization, and your whole site goes down. Mm-hmm. And so what have you seen that same thing? And then what do you think causes it?
Yeah, I think there was, I think everyone got tarred, all the small publishers and the affiliates, they all got tarred with the same brush, more or less, because Quora and Reddit came through, and there was so much of the same. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying, is here's how you used to produce a better page, top 10 results, you do something better. And then Market Muse and ClearScope, Surfer SEO, and then all got systemized. But it all looks the same, right? Like header 1,
you know what?
2, 3, 4, 5,
I have a theory this just hit me. And I want to know your opinion.
Okay.
So I think actually a lot of people, like when I make videos about SEO, I can't show my results like I used to because people hate me. They think that I am evil. And they think that like people have historically had such bad experiences with Google, Googling something and then coming across a skyscraper technique page, and they have to scroll through the page to look for the short answer that they want to find. And the introduction is overly long. They just want their answer. And they have had it. And then half of the time, the page doesn't even give them their answer. And they've spent all this time looking for it. They just hate this stuff. And so when I don't do SEO like that, I preach not doing SEO like that. And when people hear that I do SEO or hear some SEO result that I have, because they've had such bad experiences with Google and search engine optimization, they think that is what I am doing. And so you will see the hate that I get in the comments for preaching not the SEO that they hate. They just don't know the difference. And the reason I share the story is because a lot of people, they don't want that. They don't want the skyscraper technique stuff. They don't want that stuff. And they on their own are adding plus Reddit to their searches. Because they know that if they go to Reddit, they're going to get something that's going to be shorter. It's going to be more concise. They're going to trust it more because they don't believe that it's written by AI. And now there's so many people are writing so many articles with AI, or they don't know what they're writing about. So people are literally adding in Reddit. And so my theory that I came up with literally like 5 seconds ago that I want your opinion is maybe what happened was Google just said like, look, searchers don't want this type of content that people have been making that has been working for a while. Searchers just don't want it. We need to algorithmically detect the content and the pages like that and then get that out of our results because searchers don't want it and we got to give the searchers what they want. And maybe they just looked for that stuff. And it wasn't even that these sites were really doing something wrong, because you hear from a lot of publishers that a lot of publishers actually, like they were playing by the book. You hear that from a lot of publishers. They were playing by the book. But it just turns out that the sentiment shifted and that's not what searchers want anymore. And so Google removed that stuff algorithmically. Maybe it was something like that. This is just me thinking out loud.
I mean, let's address that specifically. So I don't know if it was searchers don't want it anymore. I think it got saturated and it was ranking, and we never wanted that, right? Like when have you asked someone a question that's a yes or no question and they go on for 10 minutes and you go, fuck, like you didn't even answer the question, or maybe you did, but I lost you someplace. Like, right? Like no one wants that. And if we're producing that equivalent on web pages, well, we don't want that. People want the answers. The problem is sometimes there's not. I've seen the Quora and Reddit results. I mean, same thing. They may rank for the queries, but they may not answer the question. Right? Some of them do, just like the web pages did. But we said, I think for multiple reasons, we the Google said
people trust Reddit more than a blog. I think people trust Reddit more than a random blog.
Yeah, I think the problem is there's some not so random blogs by people who actually did the work and produced really good content that also got caught up in that.
That's what I'm saying, and you're right. That SEOs saturated it, not like us because we do good SEO, but a lot of this guy's like, but SEOs saturated it, And so then people would they would come to the blog that actually did the good work. And just because it looked like the blogs that did the bad work, because they look similar, maybe they would bounce, or it just like they would assume the worst.
I think there's a lot of collateral damage around just long form content, and if it looked like everything else, because all that AI stuff was based on something good at some point, right? And it worked for reasons, and maybe it was a little bloated. It was a little bloated in many cases, but it was good research content, a lot of it. But then it all just got whittled down and just got flooded. And so if you had to choose between a good SERP page and picking and choosing what should rank and what shouldn't, and you just couldn't do that, what would you do? Right? Like there's some collateral damage, and the baby flew out with the bathwater, I think, in some cases.
And actually, by that logic, maybe what will happen is if Google, and I'll probably not, I was going to say like maybe the sites will have a rebound, but then again, I think about it and it's like, yes, you're right. The market got saturated with so much bad stuff, and if Google can't discern the bad stuff from the good stuff, then it can never actually rebound. But maybe it wasn't actually a hit on the whole site though. Maybe people can actually like use the brand and then do it in a different way, do SEO in a different way.
I mean, maybe. I mean, but if there's not necessarily a brand, where I would define brand with products and services, I don't think there's much of a brand with blogs.
If it's yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that doesn't mean that those things aren't going to come back. I mean, there was the end of the world in 2012 with small publishers, right? And now we have the end of the world again with small publishers. So that doesn't mean that there's not going to be voices. Well, the reason I don't think it will come back, and I talk about this all the time. The reason I don't think that it will come back, and you said this yourself. Sure, okay, Google went from like 90 to 89%, but the trend is more and more people are getting their top of funnel answers from AI and from chatbots. It's just like But here's what I think where we can go. I think there's, for folks to get their websites back in the SERPs right now, I wouldn't wager $1 on that. No, to come back. To build new sites, there's always going to be a voice. There's always going to be someone who wants to say something, and some amount of those people are worth hearing, and they should be worth ranking. And that content is not going to sound like all the other garbage online. That stuff should be read regardless of what it is. Those are unique voices, right? So those folks will have a chance of ranking again at some point. And maybe it's now. I haven't been looking hard enough, but maybe it's now. So maybe the trick is to not look like the other websites and to not sound like the other websites. Oh, absolutely, that's part of it. Yeah, I mean, I have a writer that I work with very closely on, and the last bit of content I gave him was, and informs him we're not using Market Muse or ClearScope or Surfer SEO anymore. Just I want you to write it. Just write it how you write it. That's it. And there's some things that this individual does, and I'm like, we got to take that out. That's not what I'm going for. But there, you can give anyone, a page of AI written content and someone who actually knows the topic, and ask them what they thought. And they may not use these words. A human wrote this, a bot wrote that. They may not use the words, but if you ask them to describe the two pieces of paper in front of them, they're going to have two very different descriptions. I learned something over here, it was entertaining to read. This one was boring as shit and was vanilla. This one had way more details. This one didn't. And then if they're actually web pages, you can go click on things, or if you go validate numbers, one's going to fail way more than the other one.
Yeah. So there's everyone. There's people who've been doing SEO for a long time who get results. There's the take on AI content. I think AI content is a short-term play. And it's like, if you don't plan on having this website for a long time, or having this brand for a long time, like, And but there is a risk. There is a collateral damage risk, and you saw this happen. I think it was around a year ago, or maybe it was no, maybe like 8 months ago. You saw people. This was crazy. And maybe you saw this too. I actually would like your opinion, but you saw people saying that they had one website that used AI generated text, and that website got hit, but then all the other websites connected to their GSC, to their Google Search Console, even the ones that didn't use AI generated text also got hit. Yeah. So there's we consider putting in AI generated text into one of our apps and doing it for, it was a combination of like programmatic SEO and AI generated text. And at the end of the day, I said, hey, listen, let's not do this because I don't know, like, I don't want to take those risks if like people's entire GSCs are getting hit.
Well, I can't speak to that, but I'll say if all the other websites in their Search Console accounts were affiliate websites or small publisher websites, we know they went missing. So, was it because they were all tied to the same account, or was it because they were all the same type of website and they all went missing, regardless if they're in your Search Console account or not? That's a little, I don't know.
That's a good point. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. No, that's a great point. Thank you for coming on. Where can everybody find you, and what do you want people to know about you, or to look at for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Edward. So we work with businesses that have services and products who want to get visibility in Google or other places where people are searching for their products explicitly. You can go to opticsin.com to find us. You can find me on LinkedIn, Nick Musica on LinkedIn. Feel free. But the first step is that discovery call to see what's going on and what you're looking to accomplish. So reach out. We'll have that chat and see what we can do for you.
Everyone, that's where to find Nick. And Nick, your link will be, send me the links that you want in the description. This episode is going to come out tomorrow. So right when we're done, cool. Please send the links that you want in the description. Any text that you want about you and your company, please share that. Everybody, this is episode 580 of my daily digital marketing podcast. 580 shows in a row, days in a row. Crazy. 580, 20 more to 600. Oh my God. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you watch this on YouTube, if you listened on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you all again tomorrow. Nick, thank you for coming on. Bye now.